Hi, families. It's Ms. Andrews again, and I'm happy to be with you today as we talk a little bit more about how you can be an effective writing partner to your child. And there are so many different ways you can do that. So I'm excited to talk to you about some of these ways. And the first thing I wanted to do was actually talk to you about writing with your child, sitting down with them. You might have a notebook that you share, or maybe you each have a notebook and you swap it back and forth. One of the best things you can do is to actually write and try the kind of writing that your child is doing. And if you ask them, they can tell you, they will be able to tell you, I'm writing a personal narrative, or I'm writing a fantasy story right now, or I'm writing an essay trying to convince my school to have a longer recess. All children at Deerfield Elementary School, even in kindergarten, will be able to tell you what they're working on as writers. So I suggest you go out right away and buy a really special notebook to share with your child, or one for each of you, and create one for yourself. You can decorate it. A lot of us in Deerfield Elementary have students decorate their notebook to personalize it, and also to give them some ideas about what they might want to write about in the future. So that's step one. Step two is it's really important for you as families to know what kind of writing we do in Deerfield. And you will find it's actually not just in Deerfield, it's a Common Core standards for the entire nation. And the Common Core standards can be really great because they give us guidelines and they make it necessary that we're all trying to get our students to write. So I'm going to just review with you some of the different kinds of writing, and so that you have an idea of what they're doing in school, and also the kinds of writing that you can do with them at home. So the first one that I wanted to talk to you about is narrative writing. And narrative writing is just another way of saying stories. And there are many different kinds of stories that children and that you can write. So one is fantasy, and those are stories that are made up creatures. For example, books like Harry Potter or books like Frog and Toad. Those are really fantasy stories because you've got creatures that talk. There might be wizardry and so on. So that's one kind of writing that you can do with your child, or that you can encourage them to write. Realistic fiction are the kinds of stories that are real. They could happen. It could be a short story about a child who's really struggling in school. It could be your own story that you create as a realistic fiction story and turn it around into a story where there are created, made up characters with an issue that you see alive, or that your child sees alive in their own lives. Another kind of writing are true stories, and those are called personal narratives. And pretty much every child in Deerfield Elementary School writes a personal narrative at some point in their career here. Usually every grade they're in, whether they're in kindergarten or sixth grade, they're writing personal narratives, and that's just a true small moment story about a time in their lives. Another thing that you can write with them or encourage them to write are fairy tales, fables, and tall tales. And one of the things that we've done in fourth grade is we've taken a fairy tale and we've turned it around a little bit. So instead of having the princess being rescued by Prince Charming, we've often turned it around so that it's not necessarily a princess being saved by Prince Charming. It's a princess who saves herself. Or maybe it's kind of like The Paper Bag Princess by Robert Munsch, who has the protagonist, the princess, actually save the prince. So even though some of those stories are traditional and the messages might not always be ideal for children, you can always take that and do an adaptation, which is a really powerful and fun thing for kids to do. Another kind is science fiction. You can create another world in space, for example, or have aliens come to the planet and write a story about that. So those are some examples of different narrative kinds of stories, genres within narrative writing that you can write. So another kind of writing that a lot of us feel like isn't legitimate, and they don't want their kids to read or write, or cartoons. And actually, cartoons can be really powerful ways to get your children to write. They might not even have words. It might just be a long strip of paper like this, and you break it up into squares and just have your child illustrate it. That's still storytelling. And you can have them doing that, creating their diagrams and their cartoons from a beginning and a middle and an end. Especially for those reluctant writers, it's a great way to access storytelling. So another kind of writing that your children will be doing in Deerfield Elementary is opinion writing. And opinion writing is also known as persuasive writing. It can be a little bit different than persuasive, but you'll hear that language a lot. And opinion is really just a kind of writing where you're stressing your opinion. And so that might look like an essay. We start with essays in fourth grade and fifth grade and sixth grade at Deerfield. And then they work on other kinds of essays. They might work on literary essays, on personal essays. Another kind of opinion writing that you'll see are letters. You might read the newspaper with your child, and there might be something in there that your child wants to write an op-ed on, or a letter to the editor, an opinion of some kind. It might be that they noticed something that was going on, a tree being cut down in their community, and they wanted to write a letter to the editor about why they feel that that tree shouldn't be cut down, for example. Another kind might be a speech. Maybe your child, you're working on a speech. Maybe even at work, you're working on a speech. I definitely encourage you to share that with your child and share the kinds of writing that you have to do with your child. Another kind of opinion writing, believe it or not, is an advertisement. So advertisements, again, those are great. You'll get a lot of bang for your buck. Those are great to create with your child because it is a kind of writing that is trying to share an opinion and trying to persuade somebody to do something. In fact, you might even encourage your child when they want something, they want a dog, well, write an advertisement. See what you can do to convince me of it. Or if they want a cell phone, make an advertisement, make a set of advertisements that are persuading me why you need a cell phone, for example. Again, another kind of opinion writing might be a petition, and a petition could be just writing a very brief paragraph where they're petitioning different friends or different people to get something done. So we might sign a petition politically, or you might sign a petition as a member in our school community requesting for there to be some kind of change. And that's really what petitions are about. You're trying to organize a community, some kind of community, to get something done, to get something changed. And another thing you could have them do is write a letter of persuasion to you. Again, back to what you might be doing with an advertisement, you might get them to write a letter of persuasion. You want a cell phone? Persuade me. Write me a letter and give me some reasons why you should have a cell phone. Or you and your sibling want to go to Disney World. I want you to write me a letter why we should take you to Disney World this year. Another kind of writing is informational writing, and you'll see a lot of that within the content areas in school. So informational writing might look like a book that they write, and so you can also have them do this at home. Kids really love this when they get to choose their topic. So it could be a little book on something that they love. It could be horseback riding. It could be soccer, but they're writing a book on that topic that they feel passionate about. Maybe they make a poster that is all about soccer, or it's all about something that they have a lot of knowledge about. I had a student know a whole lot about the Revolutionary War, and he created a whole lot of various informational texts to teach his classmates. One of the things that he did on the Revolutionary War was created a very great PowerPoint slideshow on the Revolutionary War, and he presented it to the class when we did a historical fiction unit. It was very powerful. Another kind of informational writing that they can do is research on a place you're going to. If you're taking them to Disney World, or you're taking them to Maine, or you're taking them to New Jersey, wherever, it doesn't really matter. They could do a little research on that place, and to have some more information before you go and visit it could be really powerful. And it's a great way to get them writing about something that they're going to have a lot of understanding about as you visit it. They can do research on an animal. Kids really, I don't know if I've ever met a kid who doesn't want to do some kind of research, who's not really passionate about some kind of animal. It might be a cat, it might be a horse, it might be an iguana, it could be an animal like a bat or a rat, something that kids kind of get squeamish about, but some of those kids really love that. So if you're going to get a pet, for example, maybe before you get that pet, you have them do a little bit of research on dogs and what it takes to take care of them and look after them. And lastly, another thing that could be really fun is to write out the script to a teaching video and then have them present it and record record it. So you can just even videotape them on your telephone as they're doing a presentation on something that they know a lot about. I've done it with my own son. He is a rock climber, and he did a little video on rock climbing, and I just tape recorded him so that he could see it back and then make some revisions to that. So those are some ideas on informational writing. And maybe you want to be looking for other opportunities just in your everyday, regular day. And so here are some ideas for other ways of writing. So letters to family members and friends. I'm a big believer in writing thank you cards. It's their birthday. Have them write those letters to friends and to family members when they get gifts, or just a letter to grandma saying hi. Lists, shopping lists, to-do lists. Those are great. These might not feel like really important things, but actually they do a number of things. They help get your child's thinking organized. They help with fluency, and they help them just live the writer's life of getting into that way of writing constantly throughout life. Another thing you can have them do is just writing poetry, and I would suggest getting some poetry books if your kids are really interested in that, and if you're interested. Having models of poetry is a great way to get them to explore their own creative side of writing. Composing songs. I know of a family I've had here at Deerfield, and the dad's a musician, and they write these songs together, and it's a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun. They put the lyrics to words, and then the dad puts them to music, and it's a really creative, great way to be thinking about writing. Record family trips. You could give your child a notebook, and every day they've just got to write down a little bit about what they did every day, kind of like a diary or a journal, where maybe even they write and you also write, and you're adding things and you're sharing your thinking about those family trips all together. So put down your cell phones, put down your devices, listen to your kid, get the writer's notebook out and engage with them. And like I said before in a previous video, I can promise you that once you start doing this and you're working alongside with your child in writing, it will not only help them become a better writer, but it will also really do wonders for your relationship. So have fun and let me know how it goes.